Live button ready to go here on Monday evening with our Ovadia Heart Health live stream. It's my absolute delight to have Karen Norheim, CEO of American Crane, with me today. And before we get jumping and diving into the conversation, I do have to remind all our listeners, whether you're listening, watching, or doing some of both, anything we talk about here today is not intended for personal medical advice. If you'd like to work with our team at Ovadio Heart Health, please reach out to us at team@ifixhearts.com. We'd love to talk to you and support you in your health endeavors. But we're going to talk about American Crane, about all the exciting things that Karen Norheim is doing, your podcast, a host of things. So welcome, Karen.
Thanks for having me. So nice to be here.
All right. And I understand you're shoveling your way out a little bit of snow out there, Aldis, right?
Yes, a little bit of snow here in eastern Pennsylvania. It's beautiful though, so we'll enjoy it while it lasts.
Yeah, absolutely. I like the way you embrace that with a little bit of vigor. So, Karen, I'm aware of your role and a little bit of your history at American Crane, but I believe a lot of our listeners may not. So, can you give us the little bit of background, Cliff Notes version, how you got to where you are, the head of this very growing organization? We'll talk about that as well. And just help our listeners get to know you a little bit better.
Absolutely. Be happy to do that. So, our company is a manufacturer of overhead bridge cranes. And what makes us really unique, very similar to what you see for mobile cranes, but typically they're inside of buildings running on rails. And we do very highly specialized equipment that's used to move nuclear spent fuel inside of power plants. It's used by NASA to build spacecraft. We even have a special type of lifting device that moves fish. So highly engineered specialty items, as well as general manufacturing. And then I came into this. I actually was not in the manufacturing industry. My father, Avar Norheim, actually started the company back in '72 with a few Norwegians, and he ended up becoming the primary shareholder in '85. It's a great story. He was an immigrant from Norway, never knew his father. Mother died when he was 10, came searching for the American dream, and basically started American Crane. And, was able to become primary shareholder early '80s after the one of the Norwegians kind of put it into a bit of financial crisis. So there's a bit of drama in there. But then he turned it around and made it the American Crane that it is today. And I have been with the company. He recruited me to come and work for him. I came very begrudgingly. What are these things called crane and hoist? Well, I don't know about manufacturing. How fun can this really be? Well, it's been about 24 years since I made one of the best decisions in my life to come and work for my father and work for our company, and that has led me to becoming into my role today. Obviously, some passage in different roles along the way, but my father mentored me, and it's been a wonderful transition into the second gen. We did lose my father in 2021. Now the company is a woman-owned business with me and my sister, so we're a proud second gen family run business. And yeah, there you go. There's the short answer.
Oh, fabulous. What a lovely story on the cold wintry day here. That'll warm up your hearts, definitely. And let's just kind of go right to it. This is an exciting time in manufacturing right now. Many of our listeners might know we have an employee wellness program with a different type of manufacturing company in Pennsylvania, but you're hiring, you're growing. That can be challenging, right? There's the exhilarating, the exciting part. There's also the stress that leads. How, since we're talking all things employee wellness and health and well-being, how do you juggle that sort of dichotomy?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a thing. For us, our industries are booming. I spoke about nuclear energy, and we're in the energy space. We're also in the semiconductor space. We're also in, aerospace. All of these industries are booming at the moment, and so we've added. I think we had the headcount was 70 plus employees last year, and to give you an idea, I think we're now around 255 employees total. It's a lot of employees in a year to be adding. So yes, it gives a lot of anxiety. Now, to partner with that, we have the biggest backlog we've ever had. We do multi-year contracts. So it's very exciting time for us. But to gear up to meet that demand, to hire the people, and then to maintain, we really view people as the most important part of our business. So we want to be, an employer who takes care of their people, who's leaning into it. So how do we create I like to say, a place where awesome people can be awesome? But then how do we also protect it so we're not burning out our people? We have so much work to get done and so much going on. It's a real challenge to balance those different pieces together.
And what would you say sort of for 2026? What are a couple insider tips that you're doing for your employees? And then I want to talk about you yourself, because you're at the top of the food chain
Mhm.
here, how you take care of yourself. But let's talk about your employees for right now. What are some things you're looking into, or ways to, even if it is just help support not getting burned out?
Yeah, well, we have strong communication with our team always about how busy we are and that we want to hand the baton to each other, not throw it at each other. Okay, so there's some communication around how we work together, but more importantly, we lean into culture, and we're actually adding a new position at our company called our Grit Team and Events Manager. And this person is kind of the administrator of our cultural programs. And we have a couple different areas. One includes wellness, one includes events, another includes outreach, another committee portion of the Grit team includes sustainability. And you can kind of look at them all under the guise of what we're talking about today as wellness, as different activities to make our people feel connected, and then also to be paying attention to their physical health and also their mental health, right? Trying to lean into that. So our big thing for 2026 is really looking at that program of how we try to deliver it. Are we doing the right things? We could do more, I think, in some of our spaces. Are we meeting our people where they need us to be supporting them? And then adding that extra horsepower of a person who can help to amplify the program we have in place and continue that reach and engagement.
Oh, lots of opportunity there, right?
Mhm.
And it sounds like you're really moving and shaking. I will say for our listeners too, if you've got questions, either for Karen or for myself here today, put them in the comments section. Also, want to put right up front, if you want to know more about American Crane, go to americancrane.com. Lots of exciting things happening, as Karen just mentioned, within their company. Also, Karen Norheim, I believe it's .com. Is that
Mhm.
right? You're right. A little bit more about Karen. And Karen has her own exciting podcast, Always Lifting. I just put a little plug. I was very excited to have been a guest on there. But lots of great information there about performance. So, under your umbrella, you talked about your culture, your wellness events, outreach. Let's go a little more granular. How do you manage taking care of yourself? How do you manage your wellness? Because we always like to say you got to lead with wellness if you want others to follow you, right?
Yes, I mean, that was a great topic that we had together when we spoke on the podcast, and I love to continue that. We really do have to lead by example. When we're leaders of an organization, people are taking cues from us, right? There's always this idea around executive presence and how you show up and how you act, but it also is around how you deal with stress. How you take care of yourself, how you're eating, are you making that a priority? And so for me, I'm trying to promote wellness to my people. And here I have to actually make sure I'm doing it for myself. So for me, the things that I am leaning into it is a really busy time. I can feel a little bit of burnout. I'm actually without an executive assistant at the moment, hiring in the process of hiring. And if anybody who's done hiring pieces, it takes a lot of energy. So what I'm doing is paying attention. I'm taking mental breaks. Today I took a walk, as we mentioned, outside just to get out into the cold and breathe the fresh air. So for me, a lot of managing stress is getting outside and moving, make sure I have that movement component. And then, I like to tune in and pay attention to all of the things you talk about, like the metabolic health and eating right and making sure I'm having, my protein and just like the more I lean into it, the longer I can sustain those stressful pieces. And then understanding I can't do everything. I had to have a sort of come to Jesus moment where I was looking at my to-do list and I'm like, there is no way I can do all these things. So how do I prioritize what's most important? And how do I, keep focused on the things that really will provide impact? A lot of attention management, a lot of, I'm one who doesn't have a lot of devices pinging or noises because I can get really distracted so that I'm able to stay focused and also have that mental clarity of trying to focus on one thing at a time, kind of keeping that mental health piece of it. I have other tips. I'm a avid sauna person in the morning, and I make sure I try to get my workouts in where I can and stretch and move. And sometimes just getting up out of my desk and actually stretching, and things like that are super important, right? You can get to the point where you feel like you're in your chair and you're like stuck in here. And it's so important to get up, move around, stretch, and also take time in the evening to actually unplug and say, hey, those things can wait till tomorrow. I'm going to be intentional. I'm going to enjoy my meal and talk with my husband and, be present, right? I think so often we're not present. It's so easy, to get pulled into things. I'm sure everybody has moments like that.
Absolutely. No, there's a whole heck of a lot to unpack there. We're gonna do our best here. Always so much fun to talk to you, Karen, because I instantly get energized. So thank you for that. So let's go first to metabolic health. That is a key to our passion here at Elevate Heart Health. How do you help your employees? We know you, and just as a disclosure, Karen has been part of our practice at Oviedo Heart Health. She has personal experience with how we work. But how do you embrace helping people understand what metabolic health is and trying to just raise some awareness within the workplace about that?
Well, we do different, kind of events that'll happen where we'll have a nutritionist come in and teach people about cooking, healthy food. We also do wellness Wednesdays where we bring in, different snacks and vegetables and things like that. That make sense for people on their journey. But we're also not really preachy about something I think we've talked about before. We try not to focus just on, losing weight or doing this. We do have someone who comes on and does biomarkers for our employees to make sure that they're paying attention to different pieces, but really meeting everybody where they're at. Some of the big revelations some of our people have had over the time that we've been doing these types of things is just how much sugar is really in things, right? Like, different foods have a lot of hidden sugar, and just making those small little tweaks. So we do our best to bring in experts to talk with our staff and show them, what's out there. I'm always talking about Dr. Vadia and his book and sharing that. And I also share my journey. I've over the last, it's probably more than 3 years now. I'm aging faster than time is flying faster than I can imagine. But, I think we've talked, I've lost over 85 pounds on my journey. I had CT scan when I was 43 that showed some calcification, and I had a real wake-up call when my dad passed away. I was like, okay, do I want to be around, to be here for my business, for my family, for just to enjoy life? And so a big wake-up call of paying attention and leaning in. So part of that journey, obviously found your Dr. Vadia and of course your team and really, now realizing that it needs to be my number one priority, that my number one priority is to CEO my health above my business, above all other things. I need to make it the priority. I can strategic plan my business. I can strategic plan, what's going on for all of these backlog challenges that we have and whatever. But I also need to do it for myself. And I think too often as leaders, we say, oh, we'll wait, it'll be later. I got to get this done. I got to do that. And I think pulling that into the forefront is so important. And then noticing when you're stressed and you're pulling in a way that, isn't necessarily healthy. And it's not always about being perfect in my mind. I think it's more about noticing when you're kind of going off track and then just kind of pulling yourself back in. And so anyway, kind of went all over there, but I think that example piece also is important for our people. And I share my story often, and I'm vocal about it. I'm vocal about how I'm not perfect. And I think all of those things are really helpful in helping our people understand the priority in this, and that we want them to be healthy, and that ultimately helps them be productive too. So it's a win for everybody.
Absolutely. And, congratulations on your health journey. It's been my pleasure to kind of see it go on. I know you've worked with our other metabolic health coach, Jen, who's fabulous, but our whole team. And this is important, these small steps when the question is, how do you help your employees, understand a little bit more about metabolic health? And I encourage anyone to go on the Oveda Heart Health website and take the metabolic health quiz and find out where you are, where you stand. And I am going to totally co-opt your line. You said I'm going to CEO my health. So I hope our listeners are writing that one down and quote that one, because in this space, it is about seeing people's personal journey, modeling that, but also allowing them to, put their toe in the water or maybe jump in the swimming pool, wherever they are at that point. And so much historically in the employee wellness space has been about weight loss. And certainly that can be a contributing factor to some people's negative health. That said, metabolic health, and I do this every Monday or try to, the official 5 markers are waist circumference, blood pressure, blood glucose, triglycerides, and HDL cholesterol. Weight's not one of those 5 official markers. It's important, but this understanding the broader is great. You're doing some labs for your individuals. You've got your Wellness Wednesdays. And it is sort of this mix and match, right? Also, even just having the time to talk to another employee about what they're doing, that also contributes to our health. So bravo to you from that. We're going to jump around for listeners. Again, put in your comments. You mentioned a couple just personal things that you do. You do your sauna, you plan your workouts. If everybody knows, I'm the queen of the sticky note. If it's not on my sticky note, it's not going to happen that day. Do you physically sort of plan out your week in terms of your workouts? Give a little insight on how you approach that.
Well, you can imagine as a CEO, my calendar is quite a thing. I think any leader of an organization, my gosh, you don't have to be the CEO. We all have so much going on and we're always so busy in our lives. So yeah, my calendar is set, the days that I'm going to be working out. I'm very much an early bird. And I know myself, if I don't get my sort of things that help me stay in healthy shape in the morning, it's not going to happen. So I make sure that that's early morning for me. And then, making sure I'm unplugging in the afternoon. But yeah, I use my calendar a lot to make sure I have those things as a priority. And I think it's the mindset of putting myself first, that I've got to put my oxygen mask on and I've got to be healthy and I've got to be in a great space, or I'm not doing anybody else, any favors. So I need to, and that's really counterintuitive a lot to us, especially people who are servant leaders and trying to help their people be successful. It feels a little counterintuitive. And then the other piece that I really lean into, with using the calendar is a part of it, but also, sometimes there's so much on the calendar. Like I know that I need to have space and time to just not have something to do, like doing more by doing less. Easier said than done, but a lot of pieces there to kind of keep things going and stay on that good personal health journey for myself.
Absolutely. I mean, I've worked with a lot of CEOs over the decades and other individuals, and even sometimes just blocking out space, not having an
Mhm.
appointment on there or a meeting thing. We all have
Yeah.
way too many meetings.
Or we
um,
forget to leave time to like go to the bathroom, or we forget that, oh, it's going to take me 10 minutes to walk over there, right? We really do need, we have this sense sometimes, I think, that busyness equals success. And I think it's more intentionality and space can lead to being more effective and just healthier, which makes you more productive, which again, and can feel very counterintuitive, but is so important.
Right. And this is what I think I heard you, intentionality. And you talked also about making sure that there's some time also at the end of your day, right? I'm also an early riser. I'm up at 5 a.m. I don't like to work out at 5 a.m., but I do enjoy that first, those early hours for myself to get organized and be in shape. So we touched on performance in your podcast, and I would encourage people always lifting. Um, eh, is very focused a lot on performance, right? Not only performance as an individual. Something that I've been looking at, and it's focus related. So when we talk about peak performance, whether it's an athlete, a corporate athlete like yourself, um, I find that individuals need to actually even practice doing things that require focus, whether that can be for some people learning a language or playing an instrument where they have to focus just on that one thing. How do you practice that, or do you mentor people on that? Or we've all got our devices, we're being pinged from here, and a message to come up on your screen, which actually makes us very unproductive.
Yeah, it's stealing our attention, right? There are people studying how to get our attention to go do certain things, where I feel like we need to take over the intentionality of getting a choice in what it is that we're actually doing. So for me, I'm a big believer in that I don't have my phone if I'm trying to be present. Maybe there's a time where I have to have my phone out because I need to keep the time going, but I really try to be the example where my phone is off, there are no sounds, I cannot see it, and it is turned over, and the person in front of me is getting my full attention. I also try to put my device away after about 6:30 and keep it away so that I'm not looking at it continuously. I mean, sometimes that's not easy to do if you have kids, if you have, different things going on, but really being intentional about how where my attention is going. And then during my day, we have to really train ourselves. Like we've been trained to say that multitasking is like, the sign of productivity. But I think the neuroscience says that we do so much better when we single focus, and that juicy moment when you're single focused on something and you get into that flow state and you're just like zenning through it and getting so much done on that one project. That's such a joy, that sensation and that feeling. And we don't often give ourselves the pleasure of that because we're being pulled in too many directions, or we're trying, we multiple screens open on our computer, or checking email while you're doing something else. And we really don't multitask. We switch, which means our brain is just switching between the different tasks. And overall, we're less efficient. So, it's hard. I'm not perfect at this, but I do practice, no pinging from the computer, no dopamine hits for going and looking at things. And then I also try to set up my time where I'm working on one thing at a time, and I batch my emails. I don't look at all my emails all day. I look at them and then I put it away, and then I have a to-do system where I have what I'm going to work on. I try to work my way through it that way. It's not always perfect. Sometimes there are interruptions. Sometimes you need to be available for phone calls. Things happen, life happens. But I do feel that I'm able to be more, have better performance by really being conscientious about single tasking and controlling that focus. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard these days.
Well, again, bravo for you for doing it. And I think there is no perfection in life. It'd be great. It's a lovely theory. But the more we practice it, I think, I had these last 2 years really of not when I wake up and the alarm goes off, not looking at my phone in that first hour.
Yep.
Of really trying to enjoy my coffee, read whatever I'm reading at that present in the morning, maybe catch up on some, be able to mark what I want to listen to in terms of health podcasts and things like that. Makes a huge difference. I notice on that.
Love that.
Yeah.
Something else to add in there too is I had the joy of being with my mother-in-law and my mom last week together, and we went and we painted. Okay, and listen, I'm not a painter, but we sat for an hour and a half and we just painted and listened to, we did one of these not paint by numbers, but classes where they tell you how to paint and sip. Okay, and it was such a joy because you couldn't think about anything else. You were just painting, you were just in that moment, and that single focus. It was such a good reminder of how important it is to do that, and also to do some things where our focus is not on the work, right? It was such a good stress relief. And sometimes, and I'm sure it's the same for many that are listening, it's so easy to say, I'm going to go read that book about work, or I'm going to do this other last thing, or add in that other piece, when sometimes it's great to just do something for the joy of it and not even be good at it. Okay. Like my golf game, which is not going to happen for a while with the weather right now, but I'm awful at it, but it requires my single focus. I can't multitask, and it's there. I've tried wood carving as well. I have to get back to it again. I'm awful at it. I don't even know what I'm doing. My husband has me with these special gloves on so I don't cut my hands off, but that's the point. The point is that I have to be focused on it. And I think that's part of finding, things that you can do like that to train yourself. I love your morning practice that you start. I think that's so great. And I put my phone in another room so it can still wake me up even though I don't seem to ever use my alarm. I still have this nervousness about not waking up. So I have it in my bathroom where I can hear it, which is far enough away that I can't just go and look at it. Discipline.
Yeah. It is so good, and that's really refreshing. And I encourage anyone to, if you've got comments or questions for Karen, put them in the comment section. This idea of doing something that is, I do the air quotes here for if you're just listening, of not let's say in our realm of what we do, right? You weren't painting or wood carving. It's very good for our brains to have to focus on something else. And I know there's been a lot of research done also too on just doing nothing, right? Right now, doing nothing for most people is scrolling on their phone, looking at their phone, sadly. So finding these bursts that can just recharge us. Another tip you gave us, which fits in my bucket of peak performance, is a physical renewal. You took a walk in the cold today. You talked about possibly maybe even when you're busy, just getting up, doing some stretching or doing some movement. How are you sort of managing that with a growing workforce and all the demands of CEO?
Yeah, it's tough, right? Especially when you're busy and you're trying to do more. I think we just try to example with our managers and our leaders that it's okay to take a break and to try to have those moments of movement. I mean, it's a little difficult. We got that snow going outside right now. So for some it's cold. But I say bundle up, put the gear on and get out there, get a walk in, get the moving in. I have done walking meetings with my team occasionally, which is one way to kind of encourage movement around. I feel like it's just something we're going to have to continuously remind ourselves and others around us. I have had some meetings where we've started with sort of a mindful moment, either where we're just kind of, closing our eyes and just taking a moment to breathe for a few moments. Just 3 breaths, right? Can help you reset that Parenthetic, I'm probably saying that wrong. As I am not the expert, but I know it's resetting your nervous system and kind of taking you out of that fight and flight mode and back to sort of like relax and calm. But yeah, this is something I think we could do better at in our organization, to be honest with you. I think really encouraging the movement around and taking the moments to pause, to stretch. We do different videos that we'll send out, and we actually have some during our day, fitness challenges and different things that people can do. But really, we could do more. There's probably never enough to kind of make sure we're keeping it top of mind.
And I think it's a crucial point when we talk about, oftentimes when people think about exercise, they think, oh, I got to spend hours in the gym, or it's going to take me away from this project I'd really like to complete here. I've used frequently in my coaching, we call them exercise snacks. Maybe just get up, do a wall squat. I like to encourage for my clients who are working from home, use your countertop, do a few countertop push-ups. You're not going to hurt yourself on those, but you're going to feel a little bit energized. How we incorporate this, take the stress load off. It doesn't have to be long time, but you can do little sparks throughout the day. And we know from a metabolic health standpoint, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Even just getting up out of your chair, there's an official term called the MET, a metabolic equivalent of TAS. So sleeping and sitting is kind of down there in the basement level, but even just getting up out of your chair, doing a circle around, you got yourself to maybe a 1, maybe even a 1.5, which from a metabolic standpoint is good. Let's talk a little bit about fuel. You mentioned protein. Do you have a protein target? Do you just sort of say, I'm going to prioritize protein across the day? How do you, as a busy CEO, approach the protein piece?
I definitely I think my mindset is more about prioritizing protein than necessarily the certain number, just because that seems to work for me. But I plan my meals, so I'm always taking. I like to make I like an egg salad. It's not egg salad. What I like in the morning is I have chicken sausage and I have a couple of eggs and I have a little bit of fresh greens. So it's like a runny egg on a salad. So that's my breakfast sort of salad
Yum.
that I love. But you can get really bored with food. My husband is a great cook, so he's very helpful. But I'm always, trying to do things that are easy. We had turkey meatballs and nice red sauce, like just trying to find different ways to keep it fresh. But I plan my meals pretty specifically, and I always have sort of I don't know if this is approved or not, but my peanut butter is always a hack, right? If I'm hungry and I'm in a bind, I can eat a bit of peanut butter and it gives me a little bit of a boost. But I'm really trying to be intentional, especially when I'm traveling to be always eating my protein first, finding as much protein as I can, and then maybe a little bit of greens and whatnot with that, depending on where I'm at and what my choices are. But it's hard. It's a hard thing to eat in that way. And but I think it's so worth it. I feel so good. I can't, I think that's part of this wonderful thing about the feedback loop. When you pay attention to your health and you're able to kind of make these little tweaks, you really feel better. It's all about, I feel really good. And I want to stay in that feel good space because I know that's where I do my best work and where I show up as the best human. And I think there's a bit of a wheel to kind of keep that momentum going and a motivation to keep that going when you get to the point where you're feeling that sensation.
Oh, yes. And that's a key component of what we try to work on is, understanding how your food can fuel you either properly or maybe not so properly. Right. And protein is something too, and not to make it this sort of male or female conversation, but let's just say in general, us women it's sort of shied away from protein. Luckily, that conversation is changing. And maybe a lot of individuals shied away from it because protein might have more calories. And for a long time, we were all about the calories. Hopefully, we're growing up and away from that. we definitely have the philosophy a calorie is not a calorie within the Ovadia team, but seeing when people can see and make the connection to lasting longer, having good satiety, maybe feeling a little stronger in their workouts, and not having what we would call the blood sugar roller coaster of highs and lows. That can be important for a high performer like yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I totally agree with you. And if you can be in that space where you're feeling good because you're eating well, and I've been leaning into steak and things that are very satiating and also make me, I feel good. I feel great.
And that's one of my kind of sayings is, nutrition should be for performance. It's been a lot in the past, both in the workplace and just in general, about a reward or punishment. Well, I can't have that because I didn't go to the gym, or, oh, yippee, I worked out so I can go have my double latte with, pumpkin spice and all kinds of sugar. That reward and punishments is kind of a tricky space to be in.
Yeah. And I feel like from what I've, been learning with your group and this whole idea of staying away from sugar has been huge, because now, I'm not a perfect human. I have had a bite of dessert here and there, but I can feel it. I can tell when I've had it and I don't feel good. So it's not part of my day. It's not a part of my day. Because I know I'll crash. I don't want to feel that way. I feel so much better with the sustained fuel and the ability to kind of keep moving through my work, even the stressful times, right? That's how we're able to do that.
That's a fantastic tip. Again, for anyone who wants to know more about American Crane, go to americancrane.com. Also, if you'd like to know more about Karen specifically, KarenNorheim.com. And you can see all the great things that she's doing. She has also as I mentioned earlier, her own podcast, Up Always Lifting. And if you want to know more about our Ovadia Heart Health employee wellness programs, ovadiahearthealth.com/wellness. So you run a podcast, you're talking to people all the time about your field, your company, manufacturing, but all kinds of other individuals. What do you think, Karen, are some of the things that people who are working full time or managing people, maybe even leading people, what are some things they're missing? What are we missing the boat on?
I think one of the biggest things that we're missing is this idea around recovery and maybe sleep. And I know it's something that has been a priority for me over the last year or two, and it's been such an impact on how I feel and how I'm doing, that we so often we're pushing to get things done that we don't take the time to do the recovery side of things, right? Like the stretching or prioritizing great sleep over, oh, I only, I know people who, a good friend of mine, it's like, I'll sleep when I'm dead. And I'm like, well, I think you need to sleep now because you're probably going to feel better and be better at what it is that you're doing. So I think sometimes that really gets missed. And then that we can do hard, like I do strength training and I have a trainer that I work with, and I put in, a couple days with that, but I also do yoga and stretching and meditation and things that are, more restorative, and they so help on the ability to manage stress. And also I think that then plays into, eating well and how I'm managing that portion of it. Like, I think they all are so intertwined that very often we push, and then we get to that point where, we break, and then we have to go make a change. Where if we just kind of slow down, and this even goes into my philosophy around leadership too. I mean, sometimes we literally can do more by doing less. And that sounds very counterintuitive, but if you're a leader of other people, sometimes you need to let those that you lead do things so that they can learn and grow, which means you doing less, which then means, time to be thoughtful, thinking, dreaming, visioning, all of those kind of things. So again, I'm one that kind of finds all of these threads really weave together into the tapestry of who we are. But I, like I said, one of the big things I would say is just paying attention and knowing that recovery and resetting and, that management of stress is so very important.
And this is a great point. Resiliency is a buzzword lately, right? Everybody's using it. But I think if you use recovery, it's much more practical. You mentioned sleep, right? I'm a big proponent of regularity in sleep. I go to bed at the same time, I'm up at 5, but I'm doing that 7 days a week, actually. And I think I like my dad used to say, if you're going to play hard, you got to rest hard.
Love that.
And this is true. And from, exercise physiology, kinesiology is my background. Actually, you strengthen, you challenge the muscles in the gym, but it's really in the rest and recovery where you're building them. And we need that also in all our lifestyle aspects. I think that's a great point there. In terms of yourself, I'm not a fan of New Year's resolutions. What's maybe an intention, because that was a word you use, something that you're for yourself or for your company, either one or both, thinking for 2026?
I had my one word, and now, of course, I'm blanking on what my one word was that I've decided for the year. But it's around this idea, again, of being present and living in the moment, and just not rush. I don't want to be so busy that I'm missing my life, right? Like how do I be focused and intentional about where my attention is going, about having enough time to enjoy the process of taking care of my health. Like how do I control these things so that I'm making the choices and life isn't just making those choices for me? Because I do think we control what it is we do with our time and how we live our lives. So that's my big 2026 thing, is be present, be intentional, and then stay the course, right? Stay the course and find some joy in 2026, which joy for me can also be a successful business, It doesn't, it's not, please don't think when I say joy, it's just going off on vacations and things, but it's finding joy with my family, but it's also finding joy in my work and challenging, and all of these things, I think, really combined help to keep us in that really great space. So that's my 2026.
I love it. I'm just sort of checking here to see if we had any questions here coming in. This is your opportunity to ask Karen, CEO of American Crane, any questions. Please put them in the comment section on that. As we sort of kind of get closer towards winding down, when we talk about, we've got a new food pyramid now. I don't know if you've taken a look at that. We're shaking things up a little bit when we think about nutrition. Any thoughts on that, as the head of a company, of how you might be, mentioning that or approaching that?
Well, I think it's really exciting. And, I feel often some of the things that I've learned that I've integrated into my health are not, yet known by others. And so I feel that this is the beginning of getting a much more focus on results that and progress that actually works, right? Like I just think of Obadiah's book, Stay Off My Operating Table, and this whole story of what we're eating and what we're, it can really get under my crawl, like processed foods and all this stuff when not the average person thinks they're eating healthy. That's what really bugs me. The average person thinks they're eating healthy. They're doing what their doctors told them. They're doing what they're seeing in their space and in their cultural piece. And it's unfair that there's not this awareness about, hey, there's another way, and you can feel better and you can be healthier. So I think that's really, for me, that's really exciting. And I often, as you know, don't really have a shortage of words. I'm happy to share my story with anybody who wants to listen. And I share the way I eat and the things that I've learned that work for me. And then I think everybody has to kind of figure out their own journey and recipe for what works for them. But I think it's an exciting time. I'm hopeful that we can move to eating in a way that provides us health instead of having to depend on a system of health that is really treating symptoms and maybe sometimes trying to keep us sick, right? Like, I think it's really exciting that there's a possibility for change there. And I want that, I really do believe at American Crane, our people are the most important part of our business. So the more I can educate them and share that without being preachy, to give them a chance to learn about these things, if that helps them in their life, then that is, makes me happy and excited, and just, it's a win-win across the board, right?
And we wholeheartedly support that. It's nice from our perspective. We've been preaching a little bit about the eating real food and avoiding processed food. And, even if that's all you can do is just try to focus on that, you're already way ahead of the game. It's very exciting to see realfood.gov now as the website.
Great.
And I know that your story is super compelling. I encourage anyone to go to KarenNorheim.com to find out more about her story, her health journey. And any last sort of closing thoughts, any topics that we didn't hit? I know we covered a lot here, but maybe I missed out on something.
Yeah, I think just sort of the parting thought is, I really do believe that, wellness is something that it's our physical health, it's our mental health, it's the health of those around us. And I feel that when we start to tune in and we do this idea, like I said, of CEOing your health, like in all of those pieces, that we can create ripples out that help others around us. And I just, encourage anyone who's thinking of that as a leader to lean in and be willing to share your story and share your progress. And I think that's how we learn. We learn from each other, and we learn from sharing the journey and the pieces, and yeah, just stay the course. If anything, I think my story gives permission that there's a way, it works, and also gives everybody a permission to not feel the guilt about spending a little time taking care of yourself, and not feel the guilt of having to go 100 miles an hour to be so successful. That there is another way that you actually, by slowing down, can be a more productive version of yourself. And I think just, being open to these ideas is what I would leave for those that are listening today. These are things that have served me very well and were very hard to learn. So if I can catapult anybody further on their journey, that would be wonderful.
Well, that's a let's say an image in and of itself. American Crane, you certainly can catapult individuals, right? But certainly very inspiring words. If you want to know more about Ovadia Heart Health Wellness programs for your company or for yourself, go to our website. Check out KarenNorheim.com or AmericanCrane.com. But Karen, you're doing amazing things. Your health journey is super inspiring, and we're just excited to be part of your journey, and can't wait to see where things go with your company, because you're lighting the fire.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure, and it is exciting. Here's to a great 2026.
Absolutely. Thank you for being a wonderful guest, and keep us abreast of all the good things you're up to.
Will do.